Everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Matthew Kennedy. I'm the chairman of the Water Commission. I'll be presenting and helping answer questions and direct questions to different experts tonight. Water Pollution Control Commission is here as your face of this proposed project. It's a town project, but it's something we've been working on forever. So we're here to get to know you better and to speak with you. Like I said, my name is Matt Kennedy. The other WPCC members that are in the house with us this evening are Al Walker, Laura Peterson, Hal Dolan, Paul Neary, Chris Gelke. Anybody over here? No. And we have some other visitors this evening that I want to recognize. We have Carol Walter, who's been signing folks in back there. She's our clerk and a member of the Board of Selectmen. Craig Patla from Connecticut Water has come out to be with us tonight. And Christy Wagner from CDM Smith, as many of you know, is one of the town's engineers. She's the water pollution control engineering consultant. And Mary Jane Engel is a sub-consultant. And many of you probably know her from her years as a health director and neighbor. So our current health director, Jim Monopoly, is somewhere. And Jim, thank you for coming tonight. So that's who we are. I'm going to run through a little bit of history. You guys know this history as well as anyone at this point. But I'll go through a few slides rather quickly. You know, there should be, yeah, right. There should be handouts. Thanks. There should be handouts that have all this information on them that you can get at the table. But I'll give you a rundown, and then we can open up a question and answer and present our question and answer policy that's been written by the group and by the town that I think will answer a lot of the questions that you've had since the last time we met. Okay, so what is a driver of, how did I get into this? Wastewater planning. The town WPCC has a responsibility under a state statute to be in charge of wastewater planning. In 1997, the state entered into a consent order to solve some existing, known, and suspected and potential wastewater issues here in town. So these studies have been going on for my whole lifetime, and many previous studies recommended big projects, big sewer projects that probably may have made sense back then and could have been affordable back then, but they're not. Those old stories aren't affordable now under any circumstance. So our current goal and the direction that the water pollution control has gone is to resolve specific localized issues, the ones that have come up over and over and over again. And you guys know, many of you who live in the Rocky Ledge study area, that you are one because you've had to deal with either septic issues or lousy water quality. I live in an area with lousy water quality, pinholes in my pipes. So I don't need to tell you that attacking localized issues is actually turning out to, in my opinion, to be a pretty smart way to go about it. Oh, on our next slide. That's fancy. On our next slide, you'll recognize Killingworth Turnpike running up and down on the map there, north and south. And just a quick rundown. Rocky Ledge area is what we call this group of neighborhoods. You may recognize your neighborhood on the map there. Let's see. It probably doesn't come to news to too many people living in Clinton, but a lot of our neighborhoods, including mine, we have small lots and/or presence of shallow depth of bedrock or depth of groundwater, which makes septic system functioning tricky. And we have, in this area specifically, a dependence on wells for drinking water. And that makes this area, as far as our study areas go here in town, a unique area. So we have 122 homes in that area. And this is interesting to me. It's a lot of words on one piece of paper, so I'll go over it rather quickly, but we can talk about it more. Is that there's been scientific work done. There's been a lot of research and some water testing. Some of you folks may have actually had your water tested by either the health district or by the WPCC. So, you know, we have actual physical data and locate. Let's sneak in and grab a seat. So yeah, so we have actual, you know, we have actual physical data that shows roughly we were able to get water samples from about half of the homes in this area, and you know, representative sampling from around the neighborhoods of, you know, who was interested, who we could get a hold of. And it, you know, it's roughly half, and then roughly half of those samples had some sort of issue, whether it was, you know, the presence of nitrates. You want no nitrates typically, so there was the presence of nitrates, or coliform, you know, bacteria that is can be a marker of other things in the water, or just general water quality parameters that are lousy, that we've all had to deal with, whether it's pH or other you know, type of corrosive conditions. So I like staying on this slide too long, so I will move along, but we have confirmed water quality issues and public health code exceptions for the fact that our yards are next to each other, and your well may be too close to my septic may be too close to my well, and that's what makes this neighborhood unique. And ultimately, the public water extension was something that's been worked on by, you know, a couple different groups of us, but mostly this group for quite a few years now, and it's been determined to be the most viable solution versus sewers and versus other things that we've had our engineer look at, from individual solutions on lots to community solutions right in the neighborhood, all those things. This is what turned out to be the smartest thing. And we have support from our regulators, both locally and at the state. So the good news, and I recognize some of your faces from when we met here back in the spring of 2015, I believe. But the good news is that the design of the water main is actually complete. That was something that the town fathers agreed to do, and they hired CDM Smith and designed a water main to the, you know, satisfaction of the water company, and put a lot of work into it. The Board of Selectmen, our chief executive body here in town, they're the folks who make all of the decisions. Not necessarily us. We're a group that is that falls under them, but the Board of Selectmen actually approved the project and appropriated the money to do the project, and then sent it along to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance, as you know from reading the newspaper and from just you know, being alive in Connecticut right now, got bombed with with the ECS proposed cuts from the governor. So the Board of Finance said, we don't want to shoot you down, but we need to table this for now until we find out, until we have some certainty what's going to happen with our budget going forward. So that's where things stand in the town government right now. And I'd love to point out to you folks that the Connecticut Water Company has committed to assisting with project costs, which, as you can imagine, you know, for this level of a project, getting their buy-in, you know, is a big deal for us, because it lowers the cost for the town and for you, the individuals, and it's going to work out well. The project is slated, this is something we worked really hard on, the project is slated for a loan through the State Department of Health. And it's called the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Loan, and it would be a 20-year loan at a low interest rate. And it's actually, I've been told by our finance director, a great deal. So we're hoping to stay on their radar and to qualify for this money, because it would be it'd be an enormous savings for the town, and it's you know, it's a great way to do the project. We've also applied for any grants that are available, both through the Department of Health and through a small town economic assistance program through the state. So that's another thing that could offset the cost of this project. So the thing we're probably most excited about, and some of you folks may have heard about it or seen it on the town website or seen it on the WPCC website, and we'll be making more of a presence on Facebook as well during the next couple weeks, is that what we have developed is a program, a policy, a way to make this project work. And what we did is we distilled from that whole program a question and answer document. And we feel that that question and answer document right now addresses most of the questions and answers that we've been getting from folks. Most of the answerable questions, and we'll see as the night goes on that there's some that still aren't 100% answerable. But we're happy to present that today, and there are copies here, and I'd love at some point for everybody to have a copy to take home with you and spend a little time reading when you're able. So that's the big news of why we're here tonight. It's not super exciting, but it's got a lot of answers in it. And some of the questions are questions that were passed on by folks in the Rocky Ledge neighborhood when we met with you guys 2 years ago. So here we are. You can follow us on Facebook. We're going to have local groups start sharing our information, so somehow or another you'll cross tracks with us and have the opportunity to follow us. And you're the people who, I imagine there's a pretty decent number of you folks that live in this study area that are here tonight who could benefit the most from continued updates and keeping in touch with us. So we have a Facebook page up there. I mentioned, I introduced our clerk, Carol Walter. That's the phone number at where she can be reached and email address. And I've seen some of your faces at our WPCC meetings. There's not typically a lot of folks at these meetings because it's pretty dry stuff, but it is a great way to get yourself heard and to, come for 10 minutes, come for 2 hours, whatever you want to do. We're there, and it's a public meeting, and we appreciate visitors. So that is my lightning round of running through why we're here tonight. What we talked about as a commission, and we thought it would be helpful, would be to have a somewhat. Let me see, we're pushing. That was only 15 minutes, huh? The only person who talks faster than me in the world is Christy Webb. She could be an auctioneer. So what I envisioned was us spending, some time together, maybe, about 15 minutes, a half hour of question and answers. I can try to answer them. I can, like I said, direct you to other members. And then what I found very useful last time and at other community meetings that we've had would be to adjourn the formal meeting and then have a chance for you folks to mull around, get some clean water. We have some Poland Springs back there, and get some coffee and read your documents, come and find your house on these maps. Ask our engineer, our consultants questions. Ask our representative from the water company questions. Myself, any of the members of these hardworking volunteers questions. Our health director. So that's kind of the way I envision tonight working. And if you have questions, go ahead and fire them at me, or if there's anything in the question and answer document that sounds interesting and you'd like to know how that answer came to be, go ahead, shoot, and I'll do the best I can to try to let everybody get one question in, and then people can ask all the questions they want. Hi.
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 Hi,
Bob.
Hi. A lot of the costs that will be offset for us comes through what, the grant, or?
Let's see. I'll hop right to it. It's a projected $5 million project. The town board of selectmen decided that they felt the most appropriate way, by a vote of, majority, they thought the most appropriate way would be for the town to cover that entire project. And that means the water main up into the neighborhoods, into your basement, abandoning the well on your site, so that there's no cross connections, and we can say that we're working towards getting rid of that separation distance. So that's the elephant in the room. And then to answer your question, right now, and this is subject to change because the Board of Selectmen is in flux, as we all know, but the current group that we have for at the time being has wanted to take another look at it. So even though they made a decision to approve sort of just a wide appropriation that could be filled in with wherever the funding sources come from. They are now looking at how they may want to distribute costs differently. So the grants will likely be applied to the whole project. So that's the way that would have to work, is that the grants would be applied to the whole project. I know at one time we were hoping for different types of ways, but we've worked hard to try to find a way to make this, to make it happen. So that's the most important part. I hope that answered your question.
So, at this point, we don't know if there will be in-housing program.
I think that's a fair answer. I don't think
Yeah.
we really know.
I don't think we really know, right?
Right, because you said that.
Yeah.
It's,
There's a identified community pollution, situation, and that, and the health issues, potential, just the scare and health issues that go along with that, and the need to knock this off our list. So we really want it to happen, and some of those details will still need to shake out a little bit. But right now, the intent of the selectmen was to make it happen, and the way to make it happen was to not nitpick and choose. It was to try to make it as easy, for everyone to sign up as possible. Sure.
if there was a cost, would it be outright cost, or would it be something that?
If there was a cost to you, my understanding is just in the last year or so, that the State Department of Health has allowed, I'll just point to this, that drinking water state revolving fund money to be used to cover that loan, to be used to cover the water all the way into your house.
So that's all revolving.
Yeah, so the revolving fund can now cover from the street to the home. So to answer your question, if there was a cost to you, if you were covering from the street to the home, it would be a 20-year loan versus saying, we need you to cover the street to the home, go to the credit union. So that's that was an exciting development, if it was the
It's like
Maybe you can repeat the question when somebody asks.
Yeah, that's true. He's in the front row. But, do you want me to recap it?
Yeah, couldn't hear.
The question was, if there was a cost to the homeowner on this project, how would that somehow be able to be paid for by the project, or would you guys have to ante that money up yourselves? And the news was what you heard me say, that there was a change in the regulations that allows for the state loan to also cover that. So the town would have to work out a way to roll you into that loan program. So it'd be a 20-year loan that we're told 2% to cover that type of connection.
Just to
I
build
think he
on,
might have beat you by 1 second.
just to build on that, would it be for the property or be for the person? So if I say moved in 10 years, would I still be responsible for another 10 years of the water at that property? Or we just don't know at this time?
I think it would roll with the property.
Okay.
Similar to a lien, but that's my thoughts.
And then on cost, what about someone who lives close to the street versus someone who lives set back far from the street?
It's a great question. It's a great question. We can talk about it some more. She had her hand up first, and I'll get back to it.
Yeah, I just was wondering what might be the estimate cost of all this to the homeowner.
So if the town was to pick up the whole project, then we would all be paying higher taxes, but you wouldn't be paying an actual a fee for the project. What you'd be paying is a water bill. You wouldn't be paying to replace your well pump on a cold winter's night or the day before Christmas or any of those things that some of us have been through. Yeah, or your water treatment system won't be lugging on stuff in the basement. But yeah, that would be it. It'd be your water bill if I'm missing anything.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the homeowner has to pick up the line from the pipe.
Okay, that's good. That dovetails
The
with her
house,
question.
right.
If that was the case, the way that the project was designed was for an allotment of $11,000. And that was an average that Department of Public Works and the engineers came up with, and the water company working together came up with. It was an average that would be enough of an allowance to cover well abandonments and connections into basements and meter pits at the street, and whatever was necessary in order to switch you over from having a well. Some, obviously, anybody who works in construction will know that, many of them would be much, much less. Some could be more. I've driven through the neighborhood many times. Most of the homes are fairly close to the road. So we hope that that's a real conservative number. But I hope that answers two questions. And
Just
hi.
dovetailing on the water bill aspect, having never paid a water bill in my
Yeah.
life, maybe not many of us have growing up in the country, we're not city folk. What is the annual cost for a family for a water bill?
$100 every 2 months.
I mean, the water company's gonna get our money some way anyway, so
Yeah, Craig,
what's the annual bill?
Can you give us an idea of how things work typically?
Currently, Connecticut Water Company, our average bill for a family of 3.5 people is about $150 a quarter, so $50 a month. So
It's
it
a
depends.
lot more than what we're paying now.
Yeah, well, it would.
Yeah, just bringing up that point.
It's actually about $54.
I could put a pump in pretty cheap.
Hi.
You can buy a pump for a couple of bucks.
Water's coming in the pipe, city water.
Okay,
You still have your wells.
okay.
You use them for lawns and everything. They're not gonna affect that pipe at all.
They won't let you.
That's not
They're gonna seal it.
That's not gonna be able to happen on this project. I
Nope.
know it seems like a raw deal to not be able to use it, but the way that this project has to work, and I believe it's probably under the public health code, is that any well, any production well like that on your property is gonna have to be, 75 feet separation distance, and, the water company's not gonna want any potential for cross connections. So if they were to allow a well to stay on the property, there would be a maintenance contract of them coming out and inspecting and making sure there's no cross connections, and it's not gonna be included in this program.
Fill
the
with
ability
concrete,
to keep those
seal it
wells.
up.
That's the
I
answer.
just don't understand it, because it's city water and it's sealed. You know what I'm saying, coming in
Yeah.
to your pipe in the house.
The one thing we have to remember is we're trying to remove that point, because that point takes away the 75-foot separation distance, not only from your own septic system, but your neighbor's septic system. And if they need to make a repair or to expand their septic system or change it in order to add a room to their house, whatever they need to do, if they encroach upon your 75 feet from that well that you're using to water your garden, now, they're in violation of the health code, I would imagine. So that's the way that that's the way the program is put together. So, in the back?
Yep. Couple small questions. So, I live on Oakwood Lane, and my well's been tested 4 times, and I've never had any issues with the testing. And what this gentleman said here, if I have had no issues in the past and I choose to tap in, why would I not be able to keep my well open for lawn purposes, washing my vehicles, or doing something that I want to do? Because isn't my property already grandfathered for that 75-foot exception? Because my house is built, it's there, I bought it that way. I have no issues. So why couldn't I have the best of
I'll
both
probably turn it
worlds?
over to my experts, but I'll tell you one thing, there's the state DEP who is dictating what we have to do under the order, and then there's the public health code. The public health code has to work with you, so that's where those exceptions came from. But the DEP has told us that this is what is expected. Could Craig or Jim help answer that question from a kind of a regulation point, or Mary Jane?
Well, I can shed a little light on that. Typically, with an existing lot where repair of a septic system is required, we still look for the 75-foot separation. And if we can't get that, we have to apply to the State Department of Public Health for a well radius exception. And they'll go down to about 65 feet, but they won't go less than that. So, in a typical isolated situation, we do have allowances for keeping wells. If the wells are abandoned, they have to be abandoned in a certain way, as long as they're not creating a situation where they're encroaching on a neighbor's, septic system or anything like that. But with this project is just not a water supply issue, it's a septic issue as well. So in order for area to be cleared up for potential septic repair or upgrades or replacements or whatever you want to call it, it's almost impossible to do that with, given these constraints of well radiuses. So that's in conjunction with the water project. I believe that the DEEP is going to say, Connecticut DEEP is going to say that there's no way to keep the wells at this point.
But if I choose not to tap in when the main comes up my road, I'm living under the exception, because now I'm using my well that's never tested bad with my septic in my backyard. So not to come across as this guy, but how would you stop me from doing that? I'm still living under the exception now. You can't force me to tap in.
Yeah.
I believe you're correct, yeah. We can't-
So,
we
I
can't
mean,
force you to that.
even if DEEP comes and says, hey, you don't have the 75 feet, I have that exception for my property, you can't force me to tap into the main. So if I do tap into main, what would stop me from keeping my well active just to water my lawn and wash my car?
Well, the program, as it stands now, with the town paying for it, is gonna have some strings attached, you know, unfortunately. And the reason those strings are there is because we had a bigger problem to deal with as opposed to just, you know, one of our properties. It was an overall area with a preponderance of issues, and to eliminate those wells was part of the deal. You know, the deal with DEP was not just to solve everyone's problems to the health code or to, you know, within an exception of the health code, it was to solve today's problems and what can be expected to be tomorrow's problems based on the history and just the nature of living on top of actual rocky ledge. Sir?
Last year, weren't you people reminding the people around here and other places to watch how much water you used because of the drought?
I don't believe that was us.
I think that they asked that Clinton, or the ones were living with city water, that they reduce the amount of use by a percentage.
Connecticut Water Company did it last year during the drought of 2016. We did put out a voluntary conservation notice because we had reached critical trigger levels in our reservoir from a capacity standpoint. So that's it's unusual for us, but I would say last year was an unusual year from a drought standpoint. But
in regards to that, in some of these areas around here, we have never really run low on water. We've run down, but we've never run out. And I've got a neighbor, I'm not gonna mention names or anything, but every time he takes his car out, he comes back, he washes the car, he hoses down the driveway, and I sit and I watch, and every day, I can almost guarantee you 2 to 3 times, he'll be out there hosing down grass clippings, dirt, dust. And I've seen him out there in the rain doing that. Now, you're asking us to be conservative as far as use of water. And then you gotta, I won't use the French word, but,
I'll use it for you.
Well, we always ask water, we always ask people to use water wisely and conservatively. You know, it's not, we sell water, so there's a little bit of a contradiction there, but it's from an environmentally sensitive standpoint, we always ask people to use water wisely. And your neighbor sounds like he's not adhering to that, he's not a customer of ours, but, you know, when he gets a water bill, you know, that's a motivator to conserve.
yeah, hopefully it'll work.
If I may, I'm going to make a comment in regard to costs, so that you have an accurate picture with regard to what this may be. Now, right now, it's projected to be just a little $5 million. It started out as being something less than 4, then it went to something less than 5, now it's a little over 5, so I'm not sure we really know what it costs.
Yeah.
However, the Board of Selectmen did say that, but one member of the Board of Selectmen suggested that that board should have those funds or the amount of dollars that would be allocated for that project to go forward to the Board of Finance and see if the Board of Finance would approve it. And of course, the Board of Finance tabled it. Now, the But what the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance have to do is, this has to go to referendum. The town's not paying for anything unless the entire town decides to pick up the costs associated with that. And as Matt mentioned, that's gonna increase everyone else's taxes in town. So we're asking the people outside the Rocky Ledge area to pick up that tab. I'm not sure that's gonna happen. So that could be a price, that everyone in the Rocky Ledge area picks up themselves. In addition to that, there was an article in the Harbor News. You had an issue in Guilford, as well as you have here in Clinton. In Guilford, they've got issues with regard to their wells. They were all polluted based on the salt water coming in. Now, all 144 homes are picking up that tab. That tab is financed through a bonding package of 2% loan to each one of those homeowners, which can happen to you guys. Now, if you end up with a 20-year loan at a 2% rate based on a bonding package, liens we put on those houses. Now, those liens will be satisfied when the house is sold. It's not going to be carried with the house.
Thank you.
You have to really think in terms of what it's going to cost with regard to these having public water taken to your house. So,
Thanks, Omar.
you know,
I'm sorry, I gotta let these
Oh,
folks
there's
ask questions
more.
out this
I'll
way.
interject later.
One thing I can throw out there, just as a general thing that we all need to remember, is that this isn't your average water main project. So, you know, with certain types of water main projects, for instance, one that's being planned in Guilford right now, they're being done for different reasons. This water main project here was a negotiated solution with the Connecticut DEP, and it had a lot, like I said, a lot of strings attached. The option, as Mr. Dolan just reminded me, was to say, this was a study area, formerly known as a needs area, which was slated for sewer. Sewer was
Well, that's not
projected
true.
to be.
That's not true. Can you provide a copy of that study? You need to be honest, Matt. That is just not true.
Can you
Rocky
not
Ledge is not
attack
slated
two
to
of them,
be sewer. You gotta be honest with these people. That's what you need to do.
So sewer is generally considered to be twice as expensive as a water main project, and the sewer costs on lot would be quite a bit more expensive. Hi.
Hi, Matt Kurz from Rocky Ledge. Two questions. Omar, are you on city water?
They threw me off.
No, are you on city
Oh,
water?
city water? No, I'm not a city water.
Okay, sure.
But did you mean city water or water pollution control?
Do you have well
Do you
water?
have well water? I'm on city water, yes. Yeah, I'm on city water.
Have you looked at the changes in property values related to this? I know we're here on behalf of our landlord.
Yeah.
For us, with it being a small house, you know, we're not gonna get smart as a starter home. We're not gonna get the property value from a young couple coming in. Our house has high nitrates and acidic water. So is there anything to look at how that's gonna affect the values over time? I mean, I imagine being on city water is gonna be better for selling a house in the future.
Yeah, we weren't able to find like a quantifiable number like you have with sewer. With sewer, it's very quantifiable. But with water, you know, our neighborhoods end up getting a stigma because the real estate agent takes you guys to this house and says, you know, there's one up the road, there's one here, you know, these have these types of systems. FHA tells you, sorry, they tried to do that to me, and I was able to luckily get a loan with a first time, you know, starter home. But, yeah, so I would imagine it would raise the value of a neighborhood to have infrastructure, but it wouldn't be an immediate thing that would, you know, that would affect things right away. Yeah, Jim.
I think you make a valid statement. The other thing you have to keep in mind too is that once you eliminate a well radius on a property, you increase the potential for adding onto that property with additions and so forth, that you would not be able to get approved with a well if you were encroaching on the well radius. So the potential to improve the property with additions and so forth is increased tremendously with the water.
And I have a question about that. I live on a piece of property that's a little bit over a quarter of an acre of property, or between a quarter and a half acre. Now, I was given to understand my well and my septic are exactly 75 feet apart.
Okay.
One is in the front of the house, one is in the back of the house. You just said, if I have city water, that gives me an opportunity to enlarge my house. But with the amount of property I have, if I tried to enlarge my septic system for the upgrading of the house, what if I'm not 75 feet from my neighbors?
Well, that's a problem, but if everyone hooks up to water, you don't have to deal with it.
Then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, all right.
Growing up as a kid with city water in the great state of New York, it's treated with a lot of funky stuff. Gentlemen from the water company, I know there's a lot of chlorine that treats the water, so have you seen in some of these homes, given the pipes, that there's needed to be filters or treatments in the basement, either when it comes into the house or after it comes in the house, to kind of offset some taste and smells and stuff that may come out of the water?
Well, there's no doubt that the taste would be different than if you're drinking your well water. Now, I happen to have a well myself. But it is treated, it's treated with chlorine, it's for disinfection. We also treat with pH adjustment. The predominance of the water in this area will be served from our Killingworth Reservoir and treated at our Mackenzie Water Treatment Plant right off of Ironworks Road. We also treat with phosphates. The phosphates are a corrosion inhibitor. So in today's day of post-Flint, Michigan, lead, this provides a barrier to any lead contamination that you may or may not be experiencing, depending on the alkalinity or pH of your water. So what we hear most from a complaint for people that move into our service areas is the chlorine, because it has a chlorine taste. Anybody who's swimming in a pool understands what that taste is like. What we tell people is, until you get used to it, take a mug and fill it up and put it in your refrigerator. It basically evaporates off in no time, and you can save that for drinking until you get used to it. But it's all safe to drink.
Is there some place on your website or somewhere we could get a list of what the water is actually treated with?
There is.
Okay.
There's consumer confidence reports on the website linked to, and it shows everything that we treat it with, everything that we test for on a daily basis. There's over 400,000 tests done a year on the water that's served to our customers.
I actually haven't heard from this woman yet.
Oh.
Hi.
I have a house on Margot Lane, and Margot Lane, I think, is the only house within this project, is the only street within this project that is not a town road. It's privately owned by Sweetwater Farm. Now, do you find this to be a complication in your project?
When do you guys want to take a stab at Margot Lane?
It's the property owner. My understanding from the Director of Public Works, Peter Neff, just on Tuesday night, he and I had this conversation, and this is from Peter, is that the property owners on Margot, they've looked at that, obviously. The property owners from Margot Lane own halfway into the street, and that's according to Peter. And that obviously
That's his understanding. I don't know if that's the
understanding
case, yeah.
in reviewing of deeds.
Well, we've been through this before, and the property owner had it, I think, surveyed years ago, when it was roller. And some of the people on the road on one side of the street was found that it went right up to the front step where he owned the property. And on the other side, further down, it went the other way. But since it is privately owned, what happens when you put the pipe in? Will we stay a dirt road? Will it be paved? What happens then?
Yeah, that
We
question.
can answer that question and add it, because I didn't directly work on the design, and I know that they dealt with that question in design. I think allow me to look at that, and we can add it to the Q&A document. That's an excellent question, and I know it was dealt with, but I don't know the answer.
And can the road owner deny access?
Does the town maintain the road?
No.
Prior to installation, the water company and the town would need an easement across that property as private to get to allow for that access. So prior to any installation, we would need to gain easement that allows both construction and ongoing O&M on the road.
So if they can't get the easement from him, are we out of the project? George doesn't know where the road. We all
this owner under the house.
You're saying if one person won't do it.
Yeah, I don't think one person could stop that project.
But it's a fair question. I do believe it was discussed, and I was not part of it, so we can add it to the Q&A document when we get an answer on that.
A point that hasn't come up tonight, and Mr. Dolan brought it up, is fire protection. There are plans to add, I believe, 24 fire hydrants to this study area, and that will give benefits to both your area and the areas within 2,000 feet of fire hose from your area, and that'll have benefits, the obvious benefits, and then benefits through fire insurance rates. Yeah, hi.
I just wanted to ask, how does the water company fare in like catastrophic, like Irene or Sandy?
In
Do you
both,
still have supply of water, or is there?
Yeah, can we repeat that so the folks could hear it?
so the question was, how do we fare in natural disasters and notably hurricanes? Fair question in today's context. So for both Irene and Sandy, we did not lose service in Clinton at all. In some of our smaller systems, we lost service, but all systems across the state of Connecticut were back up and running within 24 hours.
There's no contamination?
No contamination. We as a critical infrastructure, we man our critical facilities through situations like that and to ensure continued service.
I know one of the benefits of having is being able to take a shower.
It's always there. Yeah.
What is there?
Not running out to the pool with a 5-gallon bucket and bringing it inside. So, hi.
Question on the project itself. How deep does the pipe have to go in the road?
The
main-
pipe-
standards.
The main.
The main line will have 4 feet of cover. Service lines will have 5.
Okay. Has it been surveyed at all? Because obviously it's rocky ledge, so there's a lot of rock. What are they planning to do to get around this rock? Are they blasting? Are we jackhammering? You know, if we start blasting, is there going to be problems with people's foundations?
Well, like when they built the outlet mall and
Yeah.
the foundation crack.
Exactly. Or disturbing waters and wells.
Those are all great questions.
Typically, prior to any water main installation project that requires blasting, now typically, we're not that deep. Relatively speaking, 4 feet is not that deep.
Right.
It will not have an impact, but we do require pre-blast surveys of all properties and wells so that we can establish a benchmark of what the existing conditions are, so that we can address through the insurance policy of the contractor any deltas that are realized.
So that hasn't been done yet?
Well, no, I can tell you, we did do a topographic survey, and I'm gonna forget the number of borings, but we did a substantial number of borings. The rock is highly variable, which is not surprising to anyone either, probably. Jen and I were in some basements where there was rock visible, and some that were deep basements with no rock at all.
But it's not everywhere.
It's not everywhere, it's highly variable. So I can, again, for the Q&A, I will check and see what was specified as far as whether blasting is allowed or not. That's project specific, I don't know that for this. But yeah, for 4 to 5 feet, I would expect there probably wouldn't be blasting, but I don't know. There are other people that looked into that. We can add that. as
Probably a
it's
little
great
less,
question.
little less significant with utility line work than with big development projects.
And with it, that's another point to water versus sewer, which, we could get into that more, but, an alternative here for this neighborhood would be to sewer the neighborhood instead. The sewer line would be deeper, the trench would be wider, it would have to go a further distance away, so that would make sewer construction more complicated than water construction.
And the disturbance to the individual property would be a lot more.
Would that drive up the cost of those people that have to have that done?
If it were on the individual property, that goes back to the question that is still, it's a little bit unclear exactly how it'll be paid for, but there has been discussion of somehow prorating the cost per lot if you have a very short, easy, simple, sweet connection. If the homeowners are going to be paying for that work, that person shouldn't pay the same as someone has to go all the way around the back and around things and redo the interior plumbing. So yes, if there's a complicated service line connection, if the homeowners end up paying for that in one way, shape, or form, there's intended to be some equitable distribution of a more costly lot versus a less costly lot. Again, though, that is all still, it's not up to this board to decide, certainly not up to me to decide, but those are thoughts that have been put out there to try to be as fair as possible.
And it's much different with sewer. As it turns out, with sewer, there's actually regulation that says how you can recover costs on those types of projects. And it's, the on-lot work would be capped at the amount of benefit that is seen to the property. So there's an actual number that can be hung on it. But, those numbers can be highly variable as well. But that's, it's another advantage to the water over sewer, is that, that can be a big expense. So, hi.
Typically, how far from the street onto a property does the town own?
The plan is, the project stands right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is for the project, we'll call it, to extend to a meter pit by the curb, a curb stop at the curb, and then also to cover the line into the home. So it'd be different than a lot of projects, I think, because from a construction standpoint, these folks wouldn't be responsible all the way to the tap, right? Is that how that would work, Craig, on typical projects? Or?
The right of way is normally 11 feet over there.
Can you say that a little louder?
11 feet.
Carl, what was your answer again? What did you just say?
I said that normally the street was designed per the standards for the town of Clinton. The right of way would extend about 11 feet off the shoulder of the road.
So does that answer your question? You were asking about who
Yeah, so
owns
say
what?
if it was 11 feet off the road and we had to pay the cost, say for instance, my house, say I have another 10 or 15 feet, do I pay from that 11-foot variance to my house or from the street?
That's the part that's up for.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's basically, do you pay from the curb to your home
Right, 'cause if we
through
don't-
the basement or not?
Own that property, if it's not ours, it's town property.
No, it wouldn't be town. How does that typically work, Craig? It's not owned by the utility of the town.
It's what we call a water service. When you have a water main that runs down the street, the water service is tapped off of that water main and it goes from the water main to a little valve called the curb stop. Connecticut Water Company, or in this case the town, because of the funding source, would own and maintain that line. And depending on where the main is, that could be 20 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet. And from that valve into the house, the homeowner would own and be responsible for it. But I think what I'm hearing in this case is contemplating installing it all the way in.
Yeah, installing it all the way in, but then, in the end, it would remain, within your property lines. It would be
Yeah,
your property.
you would own it.
So I hope does that answer?
Where do most of these connections though, when they're connecting from the street going to the house, typically where in the house are they connecting to?
So what we would typically do for projects like this is we would look at where your wells are. Now, I'm thinking the wells are predominantly in the front yards. Not necessarily, well, wherever they are, we need to get penetrated in where your well line comes in now.
Okay, so.
That's the easiest way. And of course, there's all kinds of variables, whether or not the basement's finished or unfinished, whether it's, crawl space or not, all these things to be considered and treated individually depending on the given circumstance. But typically, an unfinished basement, come in through the front and then tie into your existing plumbing within your house as soon as possible.
So say you're going through somebody's driveway, is the homeowner then going to be responsible to have their driveway repaved?
That's not mine.
I think that some of that would be in the allowance.
Right, yeah, at this point,
Site
it's all
restoration.
intended to be covered under the project. I think the part that's still a question is exactly how that portion gets paid back, if at all, to the town. But the project, the contractor would do that initial work. If that's across the driveway and there's a small trench across the driveway, the repair of that would be included.
Good
And
part
if it
about,
went-
no, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, if it could go, if your current line could go right along next to the driveway, that would certainly be a preferable route, but it's highly site specific.
And for lack of a better term, Craig, water lines can go in places where sewer pipes can't, right? They can there be some bit of a circuitous route into the home?
Okay.
Yeah, so you're not blasting, just to go down 5 feet in someone's front yard. Yeah. Hi,
Rough estimate, how many years you think this is gonna take? Seriously?
for the construction project?
Yes. Where it's going.
I think,
I mean, we're here.
to start the construction
Can't
project?
get anything started, because
Yeah.
what do people want to have to put in water, well pumps and all
Yeah.
that? Should they
Okay.
wait a little bit and fix things, or?
We
You know what I mean?
we were tracking well to get this on the November ballot, where the town would have the opportunity to say yes or no to this project. And this thing with the state has delayed us. If we made it to the November ballot, we would have been getting bids, being put out the bid and get bids from contractors in the winter, and would have been able to start work in the summer. Right now, if everything falls into place and things straighten out somehow or another with some certainty with the town budget, this could still go to a referendum either, late this year or early next year, and work could still start during the 2018 calendar year. So this isn't way out there. This was something that the town felt would address, part of our sewer project, but would also address an immediate need for getting clean.
So November should be the time where people should know what's going on, correct?
Well,
The referendum
yeah,
in November.
Yeah, I can't answer it exactly, but I mean, we're waiting until what, October, the governor said, until he gave the legislature until October to come up with a budget, or else he was gonna cut the town of Clinton by $6 million. So I imagine that could affect timelines beyond what we can probably comprehend today.
Well, that'll be on Facebook,
Yeah, all this stuff will be on Facebook, and Carol will be able to answer these questions if you don't follow Facebook. And we'll even have updates on that bright and shiny board in front of the old police department downtown, and updates in the paper. Show of hands, how many people have seen the updates in the newspaper during this past year? Pretty decent number of folks? Okay. The press has been covering us and has been, following up and asking for information from us and from our engineers and trying to get the details right. And they've been really close. They've done a really good job so far. But we'll control the information on the website and on Facebook, so that'll be from the horse's mouth. Hi.
Hi, so what happens if the town says no? If the voters don't vote for us?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? That's like any of these other
I mean, I'm sure you guys
elections.
thought you put all this work in. I mean, every project anybody that goes up to vote, it can go one way or the other. Do you feel you must feel pretty confident to have put this much time and effort into it? Or were you just doing it because it really needs to be done?
No, there was a high degree of confidence this spring. The first selectman and the Department of Public Works and the selectmen wanted to see this happen. They thought it was doable. They thought it was, that what we had laid out as a plan was worthwhile having it designed. Spend $100,000 having it designed because they felt it was something that could be approved by the
If
town.
they vote us down, then what happens to us?
That's interesting. There's a couple different elements to that. If it gets voted down, it throws the brakes on this excellent project. If it gets voted down, it also.
Well, yeah, it's a microcosm of the Big Bad Sewer Project. People probably hear about it a little bit. I mean, there's a proposal that's currently under final review by the state to do a substantial project in town in various areas. This one was pulled out because it is important. It's very important. I know that there are varying opinions on it, but there's a public health issue in this area, and it has been, it was called out by the Connecticut DEP in various ways. We looked at it. We looked at this neighborhood very carefully, very specifically to say what's reasonable here. What can we do here? And what we thought the good part was about Rocky Ledge was that it can be done independent of anything else. You don't need a sewer system and a treatment facility and a discharge location and that major commitment. This is still a lot of money. I think we all understand that. But yeah, the two things that I think are the takeaway here are that, you know, it was a standalone thing that we felt had good support from town leadership. And it is also, as you said, it's that important. I think it's the only first step that can be taken towards satisfying the consent order that the town has had for decades now. It's, you know, not just for lip service, but it's also a good faith effort by the town to show we're trying to do something to solve this big problem, and it's gonna take us a long time to get there, but here's something that we can do. We can work in this neighborhood. So I think that this board and town leaders up until now have said, we agree this is something that the town should stand behind. If it gets voted down, again, not my decision, my impression would be that we would go back, work with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to try to package it differently, fund it differently, see if there's any more money available, although believe me, we're looking for it. That might be a case where the cost sharing ends up looking different than what has been said before, but I think it would probably be represented at a different time in a different way.
But even though the selectmen think it's a good idea, it has to be voted on by the whole town.
It does, like any
Yeah,
other
so
project.
our understanding is it goes from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance to approve the appropriation. So it doesn't mean approve anything other than we're saying that we're going to be responsible for this amount of money, one way or the other. And then it goes to the town. And, you know, there was enough people that thought that this was something that could pass. You know, at one time it seemed that it may have made sense for this to be potentially considered in with other projects. But right now it kind of has legs of its own and would probably be considered as its own line item in a referendum.
Is there ever gonna be a point where the state's gonna do anything about this consent order? If say the project got voted down, would they just come in and say, listen, you have to do this and find some way?
It's a great question. I'd love to say 100% they come down here with burning torches, or I'd love to say they're never going to come after us because they can't get out of their own way.
Right.
But all we know is what we've been told, and what we've been told is that there's a system to this, and the town was, you know, can you help me with this? I'm having recall
Yeah,
issues
no,
here.
when they basically, it has taken a long time. The project was dormant for a while in the early 2000s, kind of before I started working on it. The state has said over the last 7 or 8 years, we are working with you, Clinton. We understand this is a big deal. This is not something we want to force on you to do it, quote, our way, the big bad state way. And I can tell you honestly, I agree. I've worked with DEP on a lot of different things, and this is something they're letting us take time and get the feel for what the town might be able to approve. What we do have at this point, as I said, is an overall wastewater facilities plan. This is part of it. And this has been separately approved by DEP about a year ago at this point. But when the facilities plan is approved by DEP, that consent order from 1997 is expected to be refreshed. Basically saying, okay, now you have a plan. We need a consent order that says how you're going to implement it and by when. So that is when there will be a new set of deadlines, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, between the town and DEP. And it should be a collaboration between the town and DEP. This is not DEP dictating exactly. This is going to be, okay, do you think you can phase this in over the next 5 years, 8 years? And try to work something out like that. So
But if we were to not show progress, at some point, it is a possibility that they could push back and we could end up in a legal situation, which has happened with other communities, where you end up spending a lot of money fighting and maybe not coming out with the best solution in the end. Hi.
Well, I just want to know, I'd like to have, in your little bulletin you put out, it says, the town of Clinton and the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection entered into the consent order in 1997.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. What happened?
That's a great question. A lot has happened, but for whatever reasons, things have fallen apart. You know, you see how it has to work now. You need to get 7 people to volunteer. You need to get these 7 people to be able to convince other groups of 7 people to allow us to have money to hire these type of people, which is hard because every penny counts when we're talking about, you know, teachers and police officers and all this kind of, every penny counts. So it's been tough for the 7 people to be able to do this. And that has started and stopped several times during that 20-year period. I can say from reviewing them, from reviewing each of the kind of partial plans, this plan that the town has now seems to at least be the most comprehensive. I can't say it's I don't have a magic ball, but it seems to be the one that the most work has been into, and the most detail-oriented plan. I look at these kind of things for a living also, so I can be a little bit objective despite working with Christie all the time. Hi.
There was another area in town that was also in question, and wasn't that the Long Hill Road area?
Yeah, there's a few.
So that's on hold right now while this project goes on?
It's not on hold. The state of Connecticut, as Christie said, has our facilities plan that spells out the whole ball of wax. And they're doing their final review of it, and they're going to offer us a conceptual approval is what we're expecting. And it's going to be, because we've been working with them hand in hand, so those things aren't forgotten. We're just waiting for the conceptual approval. And then it's up to the town to figure out how do you manage something, how do you manage an unmanageable size project? Maybe it gets implemented in a bunch of small chunks over a long period of time. I don't truly know. Maybe
I was just going to
Christie
make sure it's clear that Long Hill is a proposed sewer area, not water. This is the only area that's proposed for water. Oh, it is because it's a unique area where you actually still have well and septic. I think most of Long Hill already has well water, at least most of it. So that this solution wouldn't. They have different issues.
That's a veteran.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope, not a veteran. It's additional
Yeah,
information.
it's different than the. Hi. I'm sorry, in the front. I got it.
So we will not have to do the septic down the road if we do the water?
Our understanding that we have with the Connecticut DEP is that they will allow this water project to take the place of a sewer project. So what will happen, and I don't know every single detail of how it'll play out, but what will happen is that repairs will be made to your septic system by you as necessary, and you may be held to a slightly higher standard. I'm not sure. It all depends on what is negotiated with the state and the health district. But that won't be. It won't be a 1-2 punch. It'll be now you have the opportunity to do things maybe you weren't able to do before. But no, there will not be a sewer line and a water line. That's how this was negotiated, which was a smart thing for the town, and hopefully it turns out to be a benefit for you all. Do you have another question?
Yeah, is there a way the public can look at the water treatment plan, the one for the
Great Wastewater Facilities Plan?
Yes.
So I think that's not, what we wanted to do was that when we get the conceptual approval from DEP, it becomes a more
Public.
final document. And it actually at that point gets, can be put on the WPCC website, but it also goes through a process that I'm expecting to be initiated in the next couple of months called CEPA, Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. It's basically a public hearing-centered project where the entire project is presented for public comment. And it's initiated and kind of run by DEP, but it involves at least one public hearing, as well as publication of an environmental impact statement and the whole document. But the draft document is available
The draft document is available.
but it hasn't been published because it's still at DEP.
Okay. Where is it available? Is it online
It's in the
somewhere?
land use office in the basement of town hall.
Okay.
And our contact information you could reach out to come and take a look.
We do expect to get the conceptual approval on the latest version in the next couple of months. So at that point, I think we would put the whole thing on.
Yeah, because they'd be a companion document. So, the other reason we haven't been putting every single draft out there is that we're working with this thing. When we originally started, it was looking to be twice as expensive, and now we've found ways to check and double check and have other groups look at it and spend a little extra time and money on trying to make it sound more reasonable, but it's out there. At some point here, I know folks will get tired, and we can break into kind of an informal discussion, but we're willing to stay for a while if you have more questions that the whole group can benefit from hearing. I saw a hand over here right as
Real quick, under neighbors, neighbors.
On which page?
Neighbors, helping neighbors.
Is there?
1, 2, 3, the third section, once the water coming in, so it's property. says, the town is the owner of the loan. So.
Of the water main.
The water line. So should, you go to sell, is that going to cause any legal issues?
I think that means, as we were discussing before, I think that means the water main, and from the water main to the curb. So that's the stuff that the town owns, not the stuff on your property, so, you know, I don't see that being a problem. Other than the fact that there's, you know, an
Right,
outside.
this is about the main, right, that the town will own the main until the project is paid for.
Is that's not about the way, Craig, that's how these are done.
The town will own the main until the main is fully
Fully
depreciated.
depreciated.
61-year period.
It's
But through the operation, we will be responsible for any repairs or replacements on the main within that 61-year period.
No kidding, that's how it will go. Okay. So the town's gonna own the main for a while, and the water company is gonna take care of it that entire time. So, if there's not a lot of, if there's not a lot more hands going up, we could break into an informal discussion where you can come up and look at maps, you can ask each of us questions. Al, do you have a question?
A lot of folks seem to be very interested in seeing this happen, or, you know, you're worried about the timetable. We could use your help. Come to the meetings, talk to the Board of Selectmen, talk to the Board of Finance, email people. Let them know that there are people that live there that are interested in this.
Yeah, do your own informal survey. If you're interested, let us know. 'Cause-
And stay in touch with us, either through Facebook or the website, or, you know, stay in touch with us so we can keep you updated on anything that's new.
It'd be great to have a list saying these 122 homes are interested in this. It's not going to be the case, you know, in the world, but it would be great to help the project. Yeah.
Has the news put out that this is an important thing? You said you were putting stuff in the news.
Oh, when I mentioned the news, I was mostly talking about bad news from Harvard. You know, has
The reporters, you know.
the local reporters have done fairly accurate pieces. You know.
I just wonder how much, you know, you're.
Yeah, I mean, it'll ultimately be a town meeting, I think, next month. Yeah, it was planned for October, a big meeting. We tried to make this as much New Rocky Ledge neighborhood folks as possible, so that you get a chance to talk. Sometimes it's hard to get a chance to talk.
When it gets to the voting, people.
Yeah. Yeah, so that meeting will be hopefully led by the Department of Public Works with our support and the support of these other folks. And that'll be, I imagine, well-attended and harshly, you know, good critical questions asked. And we'll get to know what the rest of the town, you know, feels about it.
So you're talking about an information meeting on this
Informational meeting.
project,
Yeah.
not a town meeting,
Right.
informational meeting. on
No, an
the
actual
project.
informational meeting on the project, probably at town hall.
Convince the rest of the town of the importance of doing this. Yes, yes. So it would be great if, you know, you attended so that you can speak personally about the issues that you're covering.
We haven't set the date, but October, we didn't lock down the date. Yeah, October was our intention, and we still need to, we probably won't have an answer from the Board of Finance until they have an answer from the state, so it could get pushed out a little bit. Hopefully October.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Can you call this meeting to order? Adjourn. All in favor?
Oh, you got a cushion on yours. Cushion. I got cruise control.
How are you? Oh, fantastic. I absolutely I'm very curious about it.
I think they allow or just go and end up with I know, some of them I talked to them yesterday, the one thing that's not they don't like somebody said, and he keeps responsible. It might be a simple change, but I think they want me to I was opening up emails. And then they changed it. Carlos is, I think, with his best. I talked to him, I talked to him 3 times in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, he was doing with Jen and what I'm saying. Like I said, I would rather, if we moved it on Saturday, I'd rather revise the report to have a visitor letter. I don't want a letter that has 10 people comments. That's not Seven individual homes per side. Oh, let's
Leave it on here.
They don't at one point I knew all of the
Yes, absolutely.
I don't even know where they took it.